Hello, so this is Cheryl Best. I'm a trained nutritional therapist and yoga teacher. I write and speak about health and wellness, and I am diagnosed with a few chronic illnesses, and I've managed to heal myself with 2 of these chronic illnesses that I've got. I've got one that I'm battling with now, and I'm going to heal this one as well. So that's what I'm about. So I write and speak about health and wellness, and today I'm going to talk about why I ditched carb-free misery for a happier, balanced life. And I think I got I'll be honest, I had a message, and it wasn't the best message, and it was just kind of like, well, why don't you just go carb free? Why don't you just advise people to go carb free? And I really don't like spreading this message. See it so much as well these days, where people are recommending that we ditch the carbs and go totally carb free. And I think a lot of it is because of like the popularity of like the keto diet, which is a big fan of ditching carbs, and also the paleo diet, where it's about eating very natural, which I'm all for. And to be honest, I am a big fan of the keto diet, so it might come across that I'm not the best fan of it, but I'm a fan of the keto diet to do it for maybe a certain amount of time, and then to be looking at kind of reintroducing some carbs or introducing certain types of carbs. And so I am not the best fan of it, and I'll tell you why I'm not the best fan of it. Because it's absolutely miserable being like this, especially when you're just eating no carbs all the time. For me, I did do the no carb stuff, and so from the age of about 23 to 35, I was totally carb free, and that was because I have a disease called polycystic ovarian syndrome, and it's an issue with polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS. Women with PCOS have an issue with blood sugar and have an issue with the cells really recognizing insulin, and so not able to get glucose sugar into the cells, which then causes this accumulation of sugar to be in the bloodstream, which then eventually turns into fat. And then also, because of having this issue with blood sugar, it also causes issues with hormones. And so I was a big fan. I still am a big fan of like low carb diets, not no carb, low carb. And so for a number of years, this is what I did. And this meant that I couldn't have rice, I couldn't eat potatoes, I couldn't have cakes, I had no sugar, I had nothing that contained sugar at all. I mean, I still eat in some ways very like that, but I don't now say to myself, I'm not going to have a cake, or I don't say to myself, I'm not going to have rice, or I'm not going to have potatoes, because instead I have small amounts of these things. I don't go huge and have maybe the portions that I was having before being diagnosed with PCOS. And I know my limits as well. So I know that if I was to go and have a great big plateful of mashed potatoes, which when I was in the days of PCOS, where with PCOS, it's not just that you have these issues with blood sugars, but you also have issues with cravings. And my big thing with cravings was mashed potatoes, and I could sit and eat a whole bowl of mashed potatoes and just keep eating it all the time, because it was helping with my need for sugar. And that is a problem with a lot of people who have issues with blood sugar, so people who are diabetic as well, is that because the body is so low and it's craving this sugar and it needs this sugar, the first thing that it's telling your brain to do is to go and eat sugar. And so this is the things that you crave for. And so for me, my cravings was mashed potatoes, and absolutely loved eating them, because I had this satisfaction from it. But then it would leave me kind of like, it's a weird feeling when you have these issues with blood sugar, because it leaves you with this kind of like punch drunk kind of sensation, where it feels like you're having, like you've had some drink, it feels like you've had alcohol, and it leaves you in that state. And you know that it's going to leave you in that state, but then in the process of that happening, you're getting this energy as well. So it's a horrible sensation. So yeah, so because of that, I ditched carbs for a long time, and it was total misery. It's total misery while I was doing it. I mean, I come from a Caribbean background. My family are from Barbados, and so in the Caribbean, the traditional Sunday dinner is rice and peas and chicken. So that is what you have. And so when it was going to like family gatherings, or it used to be back then where we'd go to my mum and dad's, everybody would kind of congregate there on a Sunday, and mum and dad would be there cooking the rice and the peas and the chicken and stuff, and the vegetables as well. And then on my plate, I would just have vegetables and meat, or chicken. That's all I would have. And then people would look at me like, what, where's the rice? Where's the rice, Cheryl? And I'd be like, well, no, I can't have rice, so this is what I'm eating. And it was miserable. It was miserable to be sitting there watching everybody else tucking into this like heaps of rice, and there's me with no rice at all, and then having to explain why I'm having to do this, and then people looking at me with like, you know, my family looking at me with like weird looks on their faces, like to say, you know, why would you do that? And back then, you know, I'm talking late 90s and early 2000s. So back then, you know, all this no carbs stuff, that wasn't really a big thing back then. And so I used to get really strange looks, like, why are you doing that? Or are you on a diet? Are you trying to lose weight? You know, all these questions, and me having to kind of like explain myself, and then people looking at me like weird, like, if you keep doing that, you're going to get ill, you're going to do that, and having all of these kind of things happening. But it did work. It did work. You know, I can't say that these things didn't work. But what didn't work after a long period of time was the stress that it used to bring on. You know, especially like going out to restaurants, and the menus, like, it would always have carbs, high carb foods, and then having to kind of explain, well, sorry, can you just make my meal differently? I don't want the rice. And sometimes I still do that. I still go to restaurants and I will say, I don't want the rice. And now it's pretty good. These days it's pretty good where I can say, can I have a salad, please, instead of having the rice? And it's fine. But back then it was very unusual. It's very unusual for somebody to say, sorry, I don't want the French fries, please. I want a salad instead. Or sorry, I don't want the rice. I want a salad instead. And you would get really weird looks at that, because it was strange, you know. But as well, I wanted it. I wanted to have the carbs. And so a lot of this was because of fear. And it was fear because I'd had this period of time where cutting out these foods, and exercising as well. I mean, I'll go on to that for another time. But, you know, doing these things, you kind of start living in fear all the time. In fear that, you know, if you have just a drop of, or a grain of rice, that you're fearing that, oh my God, all my symptoms are going to come back. Or, oh my God, if I have a potato, oh my God, I'm going to have a really bad month or a bad few days, and all my symptoms are going to start flooding back. And it's the constant fear that you're living in. And that was the part that I didn't like. I didn't like that part. And so I've had to do a lot of training for myself to realize that it's okay. It's okay if I have carbs, but I have to have this way. And it's habits again. Now, I talk a lot about habits, but it's okay to eat carbs, but I've got to eat carbs in a certain way. And I have to portion things in a certain way. And that is not what is spoken of a lot. It's always spoken of that, you know, carbs are evil. You need to remove carbs. You can't let it touch your mouth. You can't do these things. And instead, what doesn't get spoken about is the different types of carbohydrates. So it's not all carbs. Some carbs are very good because we've got fiber, and some carbs are very good because they contain really good vitamins, you know, especially your B vitamins. And so if we eat the certain types of grains, certain types of carbohydrates, they're packed full of vitamins and minerals. And so by ditching this whole food group, we are missing out on so much, missing out on so many nutrients. And that's the bit that I don't like. I don't like that side of it, because carbohydrates can be good. What we need to manage is how much we are eating. And a lot of our westernized diets, it is very top heavy when it comes to carbohydrates. And that is what we need to be managing. It's not the carbohydrates themselves, it's the type of carbohydrates and how much of it we are eating. That is what needs to be controlled. So, like I've said, you know, I went through this whole doom and gloom of like not eating carbs for about 12 years, you know, just fearing them. And it's a horrible feeling, just fearing a food. You know, we should be fearing a lion coming across to come and, you know, about to eat you or something. But I was absolutely fearing food, looking at it and just like, oh my God, what is that potato going to do to me? You know, having absolute fear of it. And fear and stress is not what you need when you've got a chronic illness. And so isn't it better just to have a little bit of what we like that might give us some enjoyment, but just understanding that maybe we shouldn't be having the whole thing. We just need to have a little bit of it just to satisfy us. You know, that's what we need. So fast forward to now, 47-year-old Cheryl, where I now eat carbs. I do. And I enjoy absolutely every single bite of it. I absolutely love eating carbs, you know, and guess what? I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. Nothing has happened to me. Nothing's going to happen to me, but I just eat them in a certain way. I portion it and I make sure that, okay, I can have chocolate, thank you very much, but I'm not going to eat the whole bar of chocolate. That's the difference. Or I'm not going to eat 2 or 3 bars of it. That's the difference. But I still have chocolate. I still have cakes. I love cakes. But I have to make sure that I'm not going to be eating cakes every single day. A cake is a treat. A cake is something that I have maybe once or twice a month. You know, if I go out for family gatherings or if I go to a restaurant, guess what? I'm going to eat carbs. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to restrict myself now and fear these foods. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them. But if I know that I've had this heavy laden meal with carbohydrates, I know that for the next few days, I have to eat differently because I've had a day or I've had an evening where I've gone a bit heavy with that type of food. So I'm not going to eat like that for the next few days. I'm going to go a bit lighter. And this is about training and habits and conditioning your mind to think like this way, to think in this way. So I don't eat tons of carbs, and I don't recommend that people eat tons of carbs. It's just about the balance and control and knowing when to say no, knowing when to stop. Okay. And, let's enjoy food. Let's enjoy it. I want to enjoy food, all of it, absolutely all of it. And I don't want to be putting restrictions on my life. I don't want to cause misery into my life. I don't want to do that. And so hats off to people who wish to live their lives restricting absolutely everything under the sun. And you know what? I've been there and I've done it. And for me, it was a miserable existence. I don't want to go back to that. Don't want to go back to that. And people that I'm working with, I don't want them to be living in misery, especially if they are doing this because they're looking to manage a chronic illness. The worst thing ever is to be then swapping the carbs for stress. It's the worst thing ever. Living in fear and then raising all issues when it comes to your stress hormones and then causing extra issues then with your disease because you're stressing over food, you're stressing over a diet. So I want to say, people, possibly in my field, people who are in these like dietary camps, can we just stop preaching? Just stop preaching and let people eat whatever they want to eat. Eat whatever you want to eat. But what I would advise is that if you want to eat whatever you want to eat, and it is a very carb heavy type of diet, then you just need to be looking at your portion sizes. Just look at how much you're eating. And that's where habits come into place. This is where we have to train the mind. You have to train yourself to start thinking very differently about food. But eat what you want. Eat what you want. We all know that we should be eating healthy. And so the issue really isn't about the food. It is about the way that we're eating the food. So the issue isn't the carbs. It's the way that we eat carbs. That's what we need to be looking at. Whew, got that off my chest. Got that one off. I sometimes I feel a bit conflicted sometimes because of the field that I'm in. I'm trained in, I suppose, a lot of these holistic kind of practices, and there's some things that I agree with. There's some things that I don't wholly agree with, and sometimes it can be quite difficult to kind of put that across. And I don't feel that people should be living in an absolute misery. And so this is just me stating my opinion. But in my opinion, I'm all about really giving people choices. I don't want to be dictating and saying to people, look, this is how you must eat. This is the only way that you can do this. This is the only diet that you can have. Don't do this. I can't stand that. I don't like it upon me, and I don't wish to do that to other people either. So anywho, got that off my chest. So you have a wonderful day. I'm going to sign off. And choose whatever you want to choose. But like I said, just focus on the amount. It's all about the portion size, and don't feel that you can, I can never eat this again and never. No, you can, but just think differently about it, and maybe look at adding in, more plant-based foods. But that's not to say that you can never have these foods ever again. And I'm carrying on. And my background, my heritage is from the Caribbean, and so it might be that you might be listening to me and you may come from an Asian background where again rice again, or and you don't want to give up these kind of things because this is like what makes you. This is what you've known kind of all of your life, and I'm here to say that you don't need to give it up, but instead you might need to just look at your portion size and think very differently about how much of that thing you're having. Right, I'm definitely coming off now because I could waffle on and on and on about this forever. So anyway, you have a wonderful, fantastic day. Signing off until I'm back on here again. You have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye bye.